Hey, buddy. It's my first video on YouTube, I'm gonna introduce myself. My name is Colin I. Thomas. So, for those of you who don't know me, I'm the roommate. Austin Bomber was my roommate, so I just wanted to talk about my thoughts on what happened lately in regard to mass shootings and gun control. For the record, for a disclaimer, I don't not claim to be an expert in gun laws. I don't claim to have any knowledge of what's going on or anything like that. These are just my thoughts, and so if you like what you see, you can comment below. Or if you have an opinion on what you think about, just let me know. So to get right into the video, here are my thoughts on what's going on, especially in gun control, especially mass shootings. I think that our biggest issue is not so much in the laws that we create, as what we're absorbing on social media and what we're hearing in the news. In fact, I will go as far as to say that modern day, generally the modern day journalism is largely responsible for influencing a lot of these young men who go out and shoot and kill all these different people. And if you look at it, there's a correlation, a pattern, if you will, with a lot of these men who are going and doing all these horrendous things. And just give you a little bit about my experience with the Austin bombing. Was that I lived with a guy like that, and a guy who thought it would be funny and to go out and kill people. Because I remember the first night I came home, and it was the night of the first bombings that happened. And so and it was really weird to me because I came home between 10 o'clock and 10:30. I want to say 10:30 and 11. So we'll just make it between 10 o'clock and 11. I see him sitting on the couch, and this is when I didn't know who it was at the time. All I remember is there was a bombing that happened in Austin, and it was, people were going crazy over it. And so what was really interesting is I saw my roommate sitting on the couch, and he was sitting on the couch. As he was sitting on the couch, he was smiling about what had happened. Little did I know that he was the person who caused all this. And so a little while after that, I remember watching a video. It was a YouTube video, a channel called Alternate History Hub. And it talks about, there was one video in particular, and I'll put the link down below. It's pretty cool. It was called How the Media Fuels a Cycle of Violence. And so I'm convinced, until I discover or somebody shows me evidence counter to what I'm going to say, I'm convinced that the media plays a large role in influencing young men in causing what we see, the violence and the horrific acts of what's been going on in the past several years in America. So how does that make any sense? Well, to give you a little brief summary, it's basically the same thing you see. Whenever we have a violence or an act like this, it's basically the same thing that we see. Somebody goes into a school, kills a bunch of innocent civilians. The media makes an outcry, and then they go into who this person was, and then they go into the numbers of how many innocents were killed, and then people complain and get mad, and then things die down again, and then the same process happens again. Person goes on and kills, the gunman goes and kills people, and then numbers are shown, and then people are outraged, and then it dies down again. It's almost like a cycle. So how does my story relate to this? Well, I distinctly remember after watching that video, and I also remember that very first night, I still look on his face, and I still remember the look on his face. And so it was smiling. He was smiling about what he just done. And in fact, my other roommate, who I call Alan, he later told me that Mark, that's the Austin Bomber's name, but he later told me that he brought up the Austin bombings of that day. So picture this, you just caused some horrendous act, and then you go to one of your so-called you go to your roommate and you start acting like you never did it, but you bring up the subject. And so I remember that. And so here's my hypothesis, until I'm proven wrong or anybody has an idea. I believe that a lot of these young men go and do the things that they're doing is because they want infamy. They want the fame, even if it costs them other people's lives or, in the end, their lives. They want fame, and so I don't think enacting more laws is the total or the final solution to solving this crisis that we have going on. And I like to think I can speak in this instance mainly because I've lived with a person like this for 6 months, and I seen firsthand what kind of person this, what kind of individual, from a general point of view, and I see the type of personality type they are, and the general personality types of these individuals. And again, this is just from my own frame of reference, but I use it against other articles I've read, and they seem to be very introverted. Again, it's not to say all introverts are like this, but they seem to be very introverted. They keep themselves closed off to the world. They don't open themselves up. Obviously we're never really gonna have a good idea of why they do these. A lot of these guys do these things because they're, most of them are dead, or maybe authorities not gonna go into too many details. But getting back to what I was saying, a lot of the just describing my roommate's personality. My former roommate, really, He was very closed off, and in fact, Alan and Alan both asked him, "Hey, how are you doing? Are you feeling okay? Are you?" And he said he's fine. In fact, but I sensed something was kind of off. In the months leading up to the Austin bombings, I remember he was very he seemed to be pretty depressed. I don't know what was making him depressed. I remember seeing him sleeping on the couch in the living room, which is odd because he has his own bed. Why is he spending night sleeping on the couch? He was, and to be honest with you, he wasn't what you would expect from an individual. He was the type of person who would take the shirt off his back to help you out. In fact, he'd done that several occasions. So you wouldn't ever suspect it would be him. From that instance, it starts to kind of mess with your mind a bit. You start to think, how can a guy like this do this? What's going on? So I think that we have to look at why they do it as a motive. And I'm not the first person to suggest, oh, what's the motive? Why are they doing this? I understand that, but what I think is that we need. I think there's as a whole, we need to start thinking more about the type of information we are consuming. Because there's a book called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell, and I read this. I dived deep into this book, and it talks about how epidemics, ideas spread. And I dived deep into this book after the whole incident back in 2018. And because I really wanted to understand, like many other people, I had a lot of questions as to why my roommate, we would do this, and one of the conclusions I landed on was that there's 3 different ways for ideas to spread, or 3 different mediums. I want to say, first you have your mavens, you have your connectors, and then you have your salesmen. And so these are the three primary ways, according to Malcolm Gladwell, that anything can spread. Like, and what I mean by anything, like ideas, epidemics, narratives. It needs at least these three things, these three mediums, catalysts to really help spread. So just to go over what they are. Maven is someone or something that's consuming lots of knowledge. Salesman is basically self-explanatory, but but how a salesman works is they take an idea and then they basically change the wording or change the perspective of it so it fits into the audience or into wherever the message is trying to go. And then connector is somebody, for example, somebody who is well connected with lots of people, and so I believe now, based on the salesman definition, that the media acts like a salesman. So when someone sees a horrible act go live on television, what ends up happening is that, depending on where they are, again, this is just a hypothesis, and based off observation, but depending on where they are, they will think to themselves, I can do that too. See, and this is where it gets kind of dicey here, because we never really fully know what their motive was, and I can't claim to know what my roommate's motive was. I don't know the motive. If people ask me, what do you think, and the best answer I can tell them is that he was a depressed young man that wanted to be famous, but for the wrong reasons. My general conclusion is that a lot of these young men want to essentially they want the recognition for being famous because their lives are so horrible, and so when they see other young men on TV doing the same thing, it starts to spread. The idea starts to spread, and I don't think the media is doing this intentionally. I don't think journalists are doing this intentionally, because I speak from I like to speak from experience when I say this, because I've dealt with journalists a lot before, and I remember in fact when I and it can get kind of annoying too sometimes, because sometimes the narrative is not what the actual story was, but I remember being contacted by all the biggest news outlets in America, ABC, NBC, CBS, you name it, all the biggest ones, because everybody wanted to know. And in fact, I got so many phone calls by them, and I don't even know how they found my number, but you can find people's numbers online nowadays, which is crazy. But I didn't know, and it, I didn't know that, like how wild all this publicity the story was going to get. I just knew that I was just minding my own business and just trying to make a life for myself at the time. And so if we think about why these men are doing that and what message they're receiving, I think that would be probably one of the best places to start. Maybe the media, instead of reporting the numbers, maybe instead of reporting how many innocent lives are killed, maybe what they should be doing is purporting solutions in order to stop the spread of the cycle of violence. But so that's my hypothesis, and those are my thoughts. So and if you have any comments or if you have any likes, please like my video. Share it with your friends. If you have any ideas, if you don't agree with me, write it down below. And thank you.